Ibarra stood undecided for a moment in Manila's cool night breeze. He removed his hat and drew a deep breath, observing the bustling streets of Binondo Plaza. The scene before him was eerily familiar. The same white and blue walls of houses, the illuminated clock face of the church, and the Chinese shops with their soiled curtains and iron gratings. "How slowly everything moves," he murmured as he turned into Calle Sacristia. "It might be said that tonight I've dreamed of a 7 years' journey in Europe." The cries of the ice cream vendors echoed through the air, while smoky lamps illuminated the stands of old women selling candy and fruit. Ibarra's gaze fell on the pavement. "Good heavens, that pavement is still in the same unrepaired condition as when I left," he exclaimed, noticing the loose stones of the sidewalk on the corner of San Jacinto and Sacristia. His reverie was interrupted by a hand on his shoulder. He looked up to see the old lieutenant, his usual frown replaced by something resembling a smile. "Young man, be careful! Learn from your father," the old soldier said abruptly. Ibarra, surprised by the mention of his father, asked, "Pardon me, but you seem to have thought a great deal of my father. Can you tell me how he died?" The lieutenant's expression changed to one of disbelief. "What? Don't you know about it?" When Ibarra shook his head, the officer continued, "He died in prison." Ibarra stepped back, his eyes wide with shock. "In prison? Who died in prison?" "Your father, man, since he was in confinement," the lieutenant replied, his tone softening with compassion. "My father? In prison? Confined in a prison? What are you talking about?" Ibarra demanded, seizing the officer's arm. The lieutenant explained that Don Rafael Ibarra, Ibarra's father, had indeed died in prison. He then offered to tell Ibarra the whole story as they walked to the barracks. As they strolled, the old man began his tale. "Your father was the richest man in the province, respected by many but envied and hated by others. We Spaniards who come to the Philippines are unfortunately not all we ought to be. The continual changes, corruption, and favoritism are to blame." He went on to describe the troubles that began with Padre Damaso, who accused Don Rafael of not coming to confession. The lieutenant recounted Don Rafael's words. "Señor Guevara, do you believe that God will pardon any crime, a murder for instance, solely by a man's telling it to a priest? I have another conception of God. In my opinion, one evil does not correct another, nor is a crime to be expiated by vain lamentations or by giving alms to the church." "Think about it," Don Rafael said passionately. "If I've killed a man and left his family without a father, how does my own death serve justice? Hanging me won't bring him back or support his widow and children. No, my conscience tells me I should dedicate my life to helping the family I've wronged. That's true penance, not just a quick death to ease my guilt." The old man explained how an ex-artilleryman turned tax collector had a violent altercation with a schoolboy. Don Rafael intervened, leading to the collector's accidental death. This incident resulted in Don Rafael's arrest and a flood of false accusations. He was accused of being a heretic and a filibuster, the lieutenant said. To be a heretic is a great danger anywhere, but to be a filibuster is worse than to be a heretic and to kill 3 or 4 tax collectors who know how to read, write, and attend to business. The lieutenant continued. He was accused of subscribing to El Correo de Ultramar and to newspapers from Madrid, of having sent you to Germany, and of having in his possession letters and a photograph of a priest who had been legally executed. Even the fact that he, a descendant of peninsulars, wore a camisa served as evidence against him. Despite the lieutenant's efforts to defend Don Rafael, appealing even to the captain general, the case became increasingly complex. "I pledged my life and swore by my poverty and my military honor," the old man said. "But I succeeded only in being coldly listened to and roughly sent away with the epithet of chiflado." The lieutenant described how he had sought help from the celebrated Filipino lawyer, Young A, who refused the case, and then from Señor M, a peninsular lawyer of great influence. False witnesses came forward, and new charges were continually added. The sufferings, the worries, the hard life in the prison, or the pain of seeing so much ingratitude, broke your father's iron constitution, the old man said solemnly. He fell ill with that malady which only the tomb can cure. When the case was almost finished and he was about to be acquitted, he died in the prison with no one at his side. I arrived just in time to see him breathe his last. As they reached the barracks, the lieutenant concluded his story. Young man, for details ask Capitan Tiago. Now, good night, as I must return to duty and see that all's well. Ibarra, visibly shaken, shook the old man's hand silently and followed him with his eyes until he disappeared into the night. Turning slowly, Ibarra hailed a passing carriage. "To Lala's hotel," he said in a barely audible voice. As the carriage pulled away, the cochero thought to himself, "This fellow must have just got out of jail," misinterpreting Ibarra's distressed state.